industry can improve the economical status of Egypt. Considering the balance between import and export in Egypt, we can find that the value of imported goods can reach like maybe 87 billion US dollars annually. And out of those, we can find that most of the 10 big products that we import in Egypt are raw material, like fuel, like some iron material and so on. And in the stage number 7, we can find that the automotive are the 7th big product that Egypt is importing. Taking into consideration that the export product from Egypt is like 25 billion, which is almost like 1/3 of the imported goods. So we need to focus somehow on improving the export goods from outside Egypt, but taking into consideration that out of the 25 billion US dollars that Egypt is exporting annually, is only 2.5 billion industrial goods, which means that it's almost like 10% of the exported goods are only industrial goods.
And hence we've seen the president giving an importance, or quite an importance, for the raw materials, the important raw materials that are being imported in order to be put into another industrial
Yes.
And he has said that we're working to develop or to locally make some of the raw materials, around 150 particles. Please continue.
Yeah, actually this is a very good point we have to consider, because usually when we import any product from outside of Egypt, for example cars, out of the total price of the car, you can find that 50% of the cost is what's called know-how, and the rest is the material. So considering that we need to improve the value of the exported goods, we have to focus on high technological products. And this is one thing that the President of Egypt has been pushing hard, is to improve the local technology, is to innovate and improve the value added in Egyptian products. And I need to give you one example which is very important to know how strong is improving the local technology. For example, if we consider the big countries in the area like Saudi Arabia, like United Arab Emirates, like Kuwait, those countries' economy are based on exporting oil. And if you consider, for example, Saudi Arabia, they are exporting oil annually by a value of 133 billion US dollars. United Arab Emirates is like 49 billion. Kuwait is exporting like 38 billion. One company like Tesla, the annual revenue is 81 billion, which is equivalent to the total export of oil for two countries, United Arab Emirates and Kuwait. So consider that one company is gaining value annually from technology, from industry, equivalent to two big countries in Asia, in the Middle East.
The future.
In the future.
No, this is the future.
Definitely,
technology
yes.
is
Definitely,
the future.
yes. Definitely.
And definitely technology, yes, indeed. Technology is being given high priority, and we'll speak about that as we speak about the BRICS, because one of the very important points or added value to our participation in the BRICS is the exchange of experiences and expertise, particularly in the technological area. But let me get back to industry, and we'll get to that. When we speak about industry, we are speaking about initiatives that have been launched by the leadership and the government. And we're also speaking about incentives. Yesterday, for an instant, there were these new incentives the president directed for a package of incentives to the industrial sectors, including tax exemptions to support projects in strategic industries. And the cabinet, of course, will issue the detailed decree specifying the industries, the exemption from all taxes except the value-added tax, or the VAT, for up to 5 years.
And that can be renewed for another 5 years.
Exactly, can be renewed for another 5 years according to the controls put by the government. The president has also ordered that golden licenses be granted to all projects.
Strategic projects.
Exactly, aiming to boost the local industries, and definitely the exemption of 50% of the land
value,
yes. According to specification or according to the time frame the project has been carried out.
Yes.
With and those are very important.
Definitely, yes.
Please illustrate.
Actually, the president of Egypt is having a very long vision, because the economy of Egypt is based on either putting your money in a bank, having a high interest rate, which is one of the world highest interest rates in Egypt. It's 20% nowadays. But you still can do better if you move your money from the banks and put it into industry. Most of the banks in Egypt does not use the money to create new factories, but to give loans for people to create factories. But how about you yourself? If you are an engineer, if you are an entrepreneur, why don't you do it yourself? Especially if you will get more incentive, as you just mentioned, from the government of Egypt to give you tax-free projects, to give you 50% discount on the land, and even to give you a chance, not even to sell in Egypt, but also using the African inter-countries agreement to export your product all over. So definitely this is the locomotive for the industrial and the economy of Egypt to move into the future of Egypt.
When we speak about incentives, there are quite a number of and kinds of incentives that can really be seen as encouraging and boosting for such a sector. Definitely, we're speaking about the economy at large, and when we speak about the economy at large, we're speaking about the industry, we're speaking about agriculture, we're speaking about other energy projects and all the files that are being given a high priority. If I may speak here about incentives, how far are the incentives given so far by the government are equal to what is really needed, and what kind of other incentives can be given in order to further encourage investors into going to such areas of priority?
Yeah, actually Egypt is one of the best countries all over the world giving incentive to the industrial project. For example, if you want to build your own factory, you can buy an industrial area in an industrial zone which has been allocated in an industrial zone at a price which is one of the world lowest prices all over. Even in some areas of Egypt, like south of Egypt, you still can get the land for free, totally free. And this has driven too many companies, international companies, like, I don't want to mention names, but too many companies are producing products in Egypt, in south of Egypt, in Sohag and those kind of areas, and they are getting the land completely free of charge. Electricity in Egypt is again a very low price compared to others. We just seen a few days ago when the president of Egypt has given even further incentive, like given the 5 years of exemption from taxes. Even if you export your product, you still can get like 13% as an incentive from the government back to your company. So too many incentives are given to Egypt. One of the most important incentive that the industry in Egypt is looking for is to improve the process of applying for a new license, is evaluating your study to create a factory and to get a land. Those issues is somehow need to improve somehow. Although
the bureaucratic work in...
let's put it this way, yes. Yes. Although it is still in a good condition compared to many other countries in the area, but still we need to do better than this.
But the other one, you spoke here about preparing the feasibility studies that can go with the priorities that we need, and at the same time know if it would work out or not.
Yes, so actually, the Ministry of Industry, they have few arms in Egypt, like the Industry Modernization body in Egypt, and this will launch, publish a report every year to name what sort of product Egypt is in need for, which are the products that mainly imported by the Egyptian economy. And those products are a highlight for the Egyptian investors to go and invest into producing those products rather than buying those from outside. Maybe having some expert in the industrial sectors to give support for people to facilitate getting the land for those strategic projects, I believe will help a lot.
Right. I guess to speak further on another sector of industry and another sector of the economy, we have with us over the phone Mr. Basim Youssef, Industry and Energy Affairs Expert. Good evening to you, sir.
Hello, how are you doing?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, now I can hear you very well, sir. So we're speaking here about the industry, and we're speaking about the Egyptian economy at large. So energy is quite an important part also, and has been given a high priority in Egypt. So how do you view the government in supporting the energy projects, plus, of course, industry?
Well, considering what we are having today, I would like to say that we have excess of energy, which we might use for export and as well for our industries. Very important point that this excess should be a good motivation for new industries, especially after what happened yesterday as a decree coming from the President of Egypt concerning the strategic projects and how he is supporting and how he is giving some advantages for the new investors coming to our, I will say, industry very soon. This was something which we were expecting, but not to such extent. I will say we were expecting holiday from taxes for 2 or 3 years, but what happened that it was given 5 to 10 years. This is number one. Number two, the price itself of the industrial land or the industrial park, which will be 50% if the investor will prove that he was very serious in starting implementing his project during almost in 50% of the timing. He will enjoy 50% discount of the price of the land. The third thing, when we are talking about tax holiday, this will encourage a lot of investors to come to our country, as we are having a good market. The proximity of the country between Africa, among Africa, Europe, and Asia. So I will say that this will give a good potential for any investors in the country. I believe that over and above all those decrees coming yesterday, it was another supportive decisions. I will consider 22 items which were issued by Mr. Fattah Sisi, the President of Egypt, 3 weeks ago, for the purpose of enhancing and supporting the industry in our country.
If I may ask you here about such incentives that we've given, and definitely priorities or priority projects that are being or will be detailed by the government, and how is that relevant to our joining to the BRICS?
Well, BRICS, it will take a certain timing, I will say, but this will give a certain potential to us, and I will be, I'm thinking that major part of it could be certain swap between, in order not to use a lot of currencies. For the first stage, I will say, this is my personal opinion. I don't have anything concrete about this, but I believe that we can swap some goods between among the countries joining BRICS. Till the moment we will be having...
yes, what I meant here is, how is that, or how do those incentives and others to come? We've seen since the start of this year, the president holding an investment council headed by himself, by the leadership himself. And that illustrates how or the importance we're giving to the industrial and the investment sectors. What I meant here is, how would such incentives prepare the ground for attracting investments, particularly in the industrial area, as we are to join the BRICS starting the 2024?
Well, any investor is very smart, first of all. When he will feel that there is a support from the president himself, and of course the prime minister and others supporting the industry, plus the BRICS, they will come to invest in our country. And I believe, as I said earlier, that this will be a good opportunity to have a portion or part of a niche in our market and the market of Africa and other countries. BRICS will, in my personal opinion, will make a certain balance between what's happening today and what is the purpose of having BRICS in the future.
Right.
Industry is a main potential for the future, for the BRICS countries, and for us especially.
Right. Mr. Bassem Youssef, Industry and Energy Affairs Secretary, thank you so much for being with us. Before we continue on with our discussion. Let's first have this quick report. And Egypt seeks to increase industrial production to 4 trillion pounds in the fiscal year 2023 to 2024. Let's watch.
Egypt seeks to increase the industrial production to £4.3 billion in the fiscal year 23-24. The Economic and Social Development Plan for the fiscal year 2023-2024 included a number of important figures and recommendations regarding the industrial sector in Egypt. In its report, the Industry Committee confirmed that the industrial sector is one of the leading sectors in increasing productivity and labor absorption capacity and growing export capabilities. It ranks first in terms of its contribution to the GDP by no less than 16%, its employment of about 3.5 million workers, about 13% of the total labor force in Egypt, and its contribution of up to 85% of the total non-oil peaceful exports. The committee emphasized that the state is keen to focus on the industrial sector with the aim of working to pursue global knowledge and technological developments to enhance the competitiveness of the Egyptian economy. This is in addition to the large industrial export development program to meet local needs, increase exports and expand the establishment of industrial communities in the governorates that are less fortunate in investments, and gives additional incentives to encourage investment to achieve geographical balance in industrial development. Egypt aims to increase industrial production from about £3.6 trillion in 2022-23 to £4.3 trillion in the 23-2024 plan, with a growth rate of more than 19% at current prices, reaching about £5.74 trillion at the end of the 2025-2026 plan. The government also seeks to bring industrial output at current prices to about £2.46 trillion by the end of 2025-2026, compared to about £1.83 trillion in 2023-2024, with an average annual growth rate of more than 18% during the years of the plan.
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Ghamry. And as we were speaking, joining the BRICS, and it's a very significant step. It would take us to other horizons of cooperation and collaboration with some of the biggest countries, the second economy in the whole world, China, Russia, which is a big power, and Brazil. A country with many potentials, definitely South Africa, and the other 5 countries or new member countries. Definitely each one of them has its own weight. What are the fields of cooperation between Egypt and the BRICS from your point of view, particularly at this upcoming stage?
Actually, joining BRICS will add a few advantages to the Egyptian economy. One of those is it's a certificate that the Egyptian economy is one of the most developed economies all over the world, because there are too many countries was applying to get into the BRICS group. Only 5 has been chosen. This means that among those 5, between Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates, this is a certificate that the Egyptian economy is ready for investors to come.
At least of very high potentials.
Correct. So this will give an evidence for investors from all over the world that Egypt is one of the places to go to invest in. Keeping in mind that incentives in Egypt, land prices, taxes are much lower than most of those 5 new countries getting into BRICS. One of the other things is it will improve the market size of Egypt industry, which means that instead of selling the product inside Egypt only, you are getting some incentives to sell your product into the BRICS countries. So this will give an investor to get
with
into
90% exemption to almost, with exemption to 90% of the products.
Correct, correct. One thing that has been mentioned as well is BRICS countries are thinking of using a common currency to import and export products in between. Although this is not a vital issue for the Egyptian economy, because we still need to balance the value of the import and export, because even using Chinese RMB or the Saudi Riyal is not as easy as having this export and import product unless you have a good balance between your import and export. It's on how can you get the currency into Egypt is mainly by improving the export. And one of those main reasons to improve your export is to improve your industry.
Very, very much indeed, very much indeed. There is also this issue of agreements that were ratified for the BRICS 2015 and applied in 2019. That is the PTA and preferential trade agreement, and the other, the PIA, which is the preferential investments agreement. And I guess that gives a kind of preferential to the members of the group in terms of investments.
Correct.
Beside, of course, trade and so. From your point of view, how would the BRICS group help directly to benefit from the experiences of each country in the industry? And of course we're speaking about production rates, but that is of course due to the production of some of the industrial that we need to increase, as you said, respectively. How would that help countries in increasing the industry or in knowing the know-how and the experience for increasing what we seek from this sector?
Yeah, actually, joining BRICS is giving Egypt and investors in Egypt a wider window to go and export their product into other countries. But on the other hand, it gives a challenge for the Egyptian economy, because other countries will get incentive to export their product into the Egyptian market as well. So let's put it this way: if the Chinese product was exported to Egypt with a certain duty custom, it might have a lower duty custom in the future and will compete again to the Egyptian industry inside. This will give us a very important reason to improve our industry, not to wait until we export very basic goods without no value in it. We have to improve the value added in our product, and as I mentioned earlier, most of the product we are buying from outside, more than 50% of the price is the know-how, is the value that this product is being made into this country. So we have to focus more into more technological product to be able to compete against those products coming from BRICS into Egypt and open new market outside of Egypt as well.
Egypt is giving high priority to the green industry and definitely the green technology as well. How far would joining the BRICS help Egypt in those two areas, and the priority Egypt is giving to such technology?
Yeah, actually, Egypt was giving the green energy and green economy a very strong support since few years. More than 4 years ago, we had an initiative called 2020, Egypt Green 2020, which was planning to use 20% of the energy generated in Egypt from green resources. This was planned to happen at 2020. All of us has been watching the COP27 conference, which is one of the world's biggest conferences emphasizing the importance of green technology. Egypt has signed a few months ago, or a few days ago, a few contracts to start building electric vehicle in Egypt at very low cost, which will be also available to export to BRICS countries. And those are the sort of product that we need to develop in Egypt with local technology to be able to compete not only in Egypt, but also to be able to export outside of Egypt.
If I may ask here also about Africa before I move on to other areas of the government or the measures taken by the government for industry and Africa. Africa is really being or is given a high importance, not just for Egypt, but all or almost all the BRICS countries.
Yes.
Egypt is the gate to Africa because it is the entrance by location, by geography, and definitely it is in almost all blocks, the African blocks. How do you view that?
Most of the BRICS countries like China, like Russia, like Brazil are very far away from Africa, and they mainly use Africa to import raw material. Many of those countries has their own logistic power inside many of the African countries just to grab the raw material and export it to those countries, and then use it to produce a very low cost competitive product in their countries and re-export it again to Africa. Having Egypt inside Africa,
Actually, it is the beginning of Africa.
correct, it will enable Egypt to challenge and even to compete against Chinese product, Russian product, Brazilian product, because too many things. The first thing is logistic shipping cost is definitely much lower than shipping a product from China to any of those African countries. We still have some preferable agreement between those countries rather than the BRICS agreement, which will enable Egypt to even have more privilege, more lower duty custom between Egypt and those countries. And this will help even Chinese investors to think twice before they export their product from China to Africa, rather than investing in Egypt to have a product made in Egypt by an investor coming from China.
So we're speaking here about Egypt turning into a regional hub or a continental hub,
Definitely, yes.
a kind of a transition from and to I mean the Brexit, rather the BRICS group
Countries, yes.
to the African continent at large.
Correct, correct. And keeping in mind that most of the investors in China, most of the big players in China are competing in a very severe competition against each other to sell in a very competitive market, which is China. Having those mindset of choosing the best location to invest, the best incentive to get, the lowest cost to produce, will enable them to think one direction is to go into Egypt, start their production in Egypt at lower cost, at higher incentive, at a lower labor cost, and a very focused nearby countries' big market. So I believe this is the future for them.
How do you view strategic plans launched by the government to create and construct the new industrial communities and zones? Because we're not just speaking about the Suez Canal Economic Zone. We're speaking about a number of industrial zones across Egypt. How do you view the importance of that, and how does that reflect on priority files given by the country?
Improving the industrial zone all over Egypt, not only to be centralized around Cairo, but also to go in the south of Egypt, into Alamein, into Sinai, is one of the things that the Egyptian government is pushing hard, not only to improve the country economy, but also to improve the local community. Because as you know, the local community will get more jobs inside those areas. It will improve the training facility there, because each of those factories will have his own training facility. So it's somehow doing what everyone is looking for, getting a better salary, a better level standard of living, and then improving into the global economy of Egypt. So definitely is somehow improving too many things, not only the Egyptian economy.
Two more important issues that I want to speak about, but it seems that you're telling me that we're running out of time. So if I may here ask about initiatives that are made by the country, and how is that really boosting our economy? Like IBDA, for an instance.
IBDA is one of the out-of-the-box initiative that has been focusing on grabbing brilliant ideas that will contribute to the Egyptian economy from the industrial arm of the Egyptian economy. IBDA, I believe, if they manage to select the strategic projects, they will make a lot of changes in the future of Egypt.
Yes, hopefully, and we're all hopeful for the few coming years to see the fruits of what we've been cultivating throughout the past few years. Dr. Mohamed Ghamry, a technology expert and a professor of applied research, we thank you so much for being with us tonight and for your input. And I guess that takes us to the end of this episode. Tomorrow will be another important topic with another colleague. Good night.